History often remembers loud moments, explosions, invasions, declarations of war. Yet some of its most decisive turns come from events so small that they almost vanish into the background. During the intelligence battles of World War II, one such moment occurred not on a battlefield, but on a city street, triggered by something as ordinary as loose change. A single coin, dropped accidentally, picked up instinctively, became the thread that unraveled an entire Nazi espionage network operating deep inside Allied-controlled territory. This was not luck. It was the result of patient observation, psychological understanding, and a recognition that human behavior cannot be fully trained out of a person. Espionage in World War II, the war no one could see. World War II was not only a clash of armies, but a global intelligence conflict. Every major power depended on espionage to gain strategic advantages, tracking troop movements, identifying supply routes, and sabotaging enemy operations. For Nazi Germany, intelligence gathering was essential to sustaining its war machine. German forces relied heavily on covert information to compensate for stretched supply lines and increasing Allied pressure. This responsibility fell primarily to two organizations. The Abwehr, tasked with military espionage abroad. The Gestapo, responsible for internal security and counter-espionage. Together, they constructed elaborate spy networks across Europe. Networks designed to be invisible, fragmented, and resilient. How Nazi spy cells were designed to survive. German intelligence did not operate with lone agents acting independently. Instead, they used cell-based structures, a method intended to minimize risk. Each cell followed strict rules. Members knew only one or two contacts. Communication relied on coded phrases and dead drops. Meetings were disguised as normal social encounters. No written evidence was kept longer than necessary. If one agent was caught, the rest of the network was supposed to remain intact. On paper, it was a near-perfect system. In practice, it relied on one fragile assumption: that human beings could behave like machines. The occupied city, a landscape of suspicion. The spy cell exposed by the coin incident operated in a city where fear and uncertainty were daily realities. Occupied Europe was a place where civilians learned to keep their heads down. Foreign accents drew attention. Even minor social errors could provoke suspicion. Allied counterintelligence officers blended into this environment, watching quietly. Their work was not dramatic. It involved long hours of observation, tracking patterns, noting inconsistencies, and waiting for mistakes. They understood a fundamental truth of espionage. Perfect cover stories fail not because of facts, but because of behavior. The human factor, why habits betray spies. Espionage training can teach an agent what to say, where to go, and how to signal. What cannot easily erase are deeply ingrained habits. These include how someone reacts under minor stress, how they handle everyday objects, how quickly they respond to unexpected events. Psychologists refer to these actions as automatic behaviors, responses controlled by muscle memory rather than conscious thought. Currency handling is one of the strongest examples. People grow up learning the weight of local coins, their balance in the hand, how to sort them without looking. Foreign currency feels wrong, even if the difference is subtle. The incident, a coin that should have meant nothing. The decisive moment occurred during an otherwise unremarkable street interaction. An undercover German agent, posing as a local civilian, reached into his pocket to pay for a small purchase. A coin slipped free and struck the ground. The sound itself was not suspicious. The reaction was. The man paused just slightly longer than normal before retrieving it. When he did, his movements lacked the casual familiarity expected of a native resident. To most observers, it would have gone unnoticed. But to a trained Allied counterintelligence officer nearby, it stood out immediately. Why that reaction raised alarms. The officer had spent months watching local behavior. He knew how residents handled their money, quickly, unconsciously, without thought. The agent's response suggested hesitation under a trivial event. conscious control over a normally automatic action. Unfamiliarity masked by overcorrection. This was not proof. But intelligence work rarely begins with proof. It begins with suspicion, testing the hypothesis, observation over arrest. Crucially, the officer did not confront or arrest the man. Immediate action would have destroyed the chance to uncover a larger network. Instead, the suspect was quietly monitored. Over the following days, his interactions were observed, his movements mapped, his contacts noted. Additional soft tests were introduced, casual conversations, minor social exchanges, situations involving money or local customs. Each time, the same pattern emerged, technically correct behavior, but subtly unnatural. The suspicion deepened, from individual to network. Spies do not operate in isolation. Once the agent's movements were tracked, a pattern of contact points emerged. Repeated visits to specific locations. Brief meetings with different individuals. Timed routines inconsistent with civilian life. Dead drops were identified. Coded messages were intercepted. Safe houses were discovered. Slowly, the outlines of an entire Nazi spy cell came into focus. The collapse of the spy cell. When Allied forces finally acted, they did so decisively. Multiple arrests occurred within a short time frame to prevent warnings from spreading. Documents were seized, codes broken, and remaining operatives identified. The spy cell, built to survive years of infiltration, collapsed completely. Its exposure had immediate consequences. Allied supply routes became safer. Planned sabotage operations failed. Avoided capture. Lives were saved, not through firepower, but through attention. Why the coin matters historically. The story of the coin endures in intelligence training not because of the object itself, but because of what it represents. It illustrates three enduring truths. Human behavior is harder to disguise than information. Small inconsistencies reveal large deceptions. Patience is more powerful than force in intelligence work. No technology failed the Nazi spy cell. No code was broken first. No informant betrayed them. They were undone by being human. Lessons from modern intelligence. Modern espionage uses satellites, digital surveillance, and artificial intelligence. Yet intelligence agencies still train operatives to watch for behavioral anomalies. Why? Because technology changes faster than psychology. People still hesitate. They still overthink. They still reveal themselves in moments they believe don't matter. Conclusion: the loudest silence in history. The fall of a Nazi spy cell did not begin with gunfire or interrogation rooms. It began with a sound barely louder than a whisper, the clink of a coin against stone. That moment reminds us that history is not only shaped by grand decisions, but by ordinary actions observed carefully. In a world of secrets, the smallest detail can speak the loudest, and sometimes it can change the course of war.